Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this episode of SBB University, where we're going to be talking about retirement options and how to plan. I'm going to introduce each of our panelists who are taking some time out of their very busy morning to join us for this episode. We're going to start with Miss Pam. She is with Grand Care Plus. So good morning, Pam. How are you?
I'm doing well, Amanda. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. So tell me a little bit about yourself and your background, how you got into the industry, and what company you are introducing us here today, because you do care management, home care, a little bit of everything.
So I got in the business about 5 years ago. Prior to that, I was a criminal paralegal and I hated it. And so I ventured out, started my own business as a companion care, and then found a year later that people really needed more help. So I got my home health agency license, and 5 years later, I'm doing quite well. And that's really, that's really all there is to tell.
Well, you do a lot more than that. With the care management piece, you really are like that, puzzle piece that puts people together with other agencies that make sure that they stay home and kind of age in place as well.
Yeah, the care management, it is good. It's not something that everybody needs, which is kind of good because it's exhausting. It really is hard to keep up. It really is hard to keep up with everybody, managing everybody's doctor's appointments and hair appointments and all these other appointments. The girls are doing a great job with it, but it's needed. And it'd be nice if I just had someone to do that. But, as you know, I'm moving forward on another venture that we'll talk at the next one. But I think that the seniors today, after COVID, want to stay in their homes even more.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Next up on the docket, we have Miss Freya Robinson, who is with Robbins Financial. Not Robinson, Robbins. I told you I can butcher anybody's last name. It doesn't really matter how easy it is.
That's okay. Thanks for having me, Amanda. And it is Robbins, 2 B's. So I have a multifaceted business. I am an elder mediator. And also I help families, couples, individuals with their planning for the financial piece as it relates to long-term care, investments, special needs in the area of someone who is disabled. And those are businesses that really came out of the family mediation business, because as I worked with families, it was evident to me how many people singularly and couples really didn't have a good sense of their finances. And then also the planning that goes along with that as we age and as we have different concerns and needs that crop up in our life, whether it's our own selves and our aging process, our parents, and the aging process that I went through with both of my parents who needed care or who needed preparation for end of life, and a special needs son that I have. So it all related to my own experience that I gained as a result of helping my existing clients.
Yeah, definitely. I think that all of the life experiences that you've gone through have kind of led you to where you are today, and you're doing a great job. All right, Miss Michelle, how are you this morning?
Oh, I'm doing great, thanks.
So you are an elder law attorney. Tell us everything about what your practice specializes in, and a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Absolutely. So I opened the law firm back in 2019 with the specialty areas of estate planning, probate, Medicaid, long-term care planning, and also real estate. What drove me into this field is I've been the person in the hospital being diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. I've also been a caretaker of what I call my kids, who are 4 people over the age of 70 up until my grandfather passed away. He passed away at 102, and we were helping to care for him. So I've seen what happens with the family once someone reaches that stage where they need the additional help and how everyone has to pitch in. So my goal in life is to help people through that process. The wonderful thing about the law field is I get I get to help families with the beforehand and also the aftermath. So that's been my goal. So I usually reach out to people such as Pam and Freya for assistance with those type of areas. And hopefully, we're able to provide a collective experience for the family and help them through it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's good to tie into those resources. So Pam covers kind of quite a few different things. So Pam, we'll start with you. As far as, your main focus right now is your companion care and the care management piece of things. So talk to me a little bit about what a private duty home care company does versus, let's say, a Medicare agency, because people need to know the differences when they're making decisions.
I know, and they do get confused. The first thing they say is, "Oh, you mean Medicare doesn't cover?" And of course it doesn't. So we do non-skilled, we do personal care, companion care, transportation, and care management. We do what the skilled nursing doesn't do, but it's private pay. That's why I've been a speaker for a couple of people that I know that sell the long-term care insurance, because I just can't say enough about it. Because that's the only thing that covers what we do. So that's the difference. The difference is Medicare covers everything that the skilled nursing does, and it doesn't with the private duties.
Right. You don't have to have that doctor's note when somebody needs to call you as well.
No orders.
Right, right. And I think Freya can speak really on the long-term care insurance piece of things. Do you want to go into like the different type of policies that are out there and which ones would be right for which different types of people?
Right. There's a lot of different policies out there, and a lot of the companies that have been around over the years are gone. One of the things that I have noticed that people have talked about is that we have this, what we thought was a great policy initially, but they keep increasing our premiums, and it's costly, so if you've paid X amount of money and you've had that policy for 10 years, and they're telling you that you have to pay more in order to keep it in force. Mm-hmm. You've already paid so much into it, you don't want to let it go. So people have had to pay more and more and more. And I represent some other companies that offer a policy that sometimes we call it asset-based, or otherwise known as a hybrid, where you can basically protect your assets by putting money into this long-term care policy, and then the premiums on that policy remain in that same amount. They can't raise those premiums for families, and it's really a wonderful program that really protects those assets, because then once you go on claim for long-term care needs, then the money comes out of that bucket of money that you've already put into the policy, thereby protecting the assets that you have, and those can then be passed on down to the family members. So if you don't use it, you don't lose it. In other words, let's just say a couple opts for something like this, and then they don't use the policy, and they had, let's just say, $100,000 of their assets tied up in it. That is assigned to their beneficiary. So if they didn't ever use the policy, it would get passed on to their family. Whereas some of these old policies, they pay every single month. And if they didn't use it, they just lost it. So It's really a great program for protecting assets.
Yeah, and speaking of assets, we'll move up. Michelle, tell me, how much should somebody have in their assets in order to do proper estate planning?
So the correct answer, it depends. It depends on what kind of assets you have. But the rule of thumb is, if you have $1, you need to have an estate plan. The reason why is we often find out that something didn't have a beneficiary on it that could have simply avoided probate. And especially when it comes into Medicaid planning, you want to start thinking about Medicaid planning if you don't have a long-term care policy in place. especially since without long-term care, Medicaid will, assist with paying for long-term care, but it's not going to be at the facility you probably want. It may not be, there might not be an option for home health, just like what Pam was saying. So if you do plan on wanting to stay home for as long as possible, those long-term care plans are really important. So that's part of the overall aspect of what we're looking at, is figuring out how we can get you to protect your assets for as long as possible. And yet, have you be as independent as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Pam, when you go into the homes, one of the very first things you're going to do is a care plan. So talk to me about what a care plan is.
So our care plan is based, I look at the house or the apartment or condo or whatever they're in to see what's going on with that. I look at the equipment that they're using. I look at the lack of care to the home. A lot of people have a lot of issues with cleanliness, obviously. And then the bad thing is we go in there, they think we're a maid service. Mm-hmm. They don't know, the caregiving part they don't get. They're, oh, well, you're my maid and you're not doing a very good job. So surface cleaning and deep cleaning is two different things, but, and what their diagnosis is, even though we're non-skilled or non-medical, I still want to know what I'm dealing with. I still want to know if they are fall risk. I want to know, if they're incontinent or if they need assistance in the restrooms and stuff like that. Because it depends, that tells me who I'm going to send into the home, either a home health aide or a companion. And the same thing with, with transportation. If they're going to need transportation, can they assist? Mm-hmm. Can they get out of the wheelchair? Can they get into the car and stuff like that? Because if not, then they have to go to the next level.
Right. And I think it's a really good way of setting expectations for yourself, your caregiver. So everybody's meeting those expectations on both sides. It's just really important to have like that, I call it a roadmap. All right.
Yes, no, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good analogy for it, I think. So Freya, you do wealth preservation along with everything else with the financial planning side of things. What's the best advice you think you could give someone that, is my age and needs to start planning for retirement?
Oh, that was such a perfect lead in. Start early. You can never start too early.
Or too late.
People think that estate planning is for old people. It's not. It's for everyone. Everybody should have a plan in place, and that plan should change, just like you talked about the roadmap, that it's going to change year after year. It's going to change based on changes in our family, marriage, children, other children, work, health conditions. And long-term care insurance is based on your health. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people think, well, I'll wait and get it later. Well, we always want to get insurance when we don't qualify anymore. I am also, like you, Michelle, a cancer survivor. And at the age of 25, I could not qualify for insurance. And it was frightening to think that because of my health, now it's changed since, fortunately, it's been long enough that I have been cancer free, but to realize that one moment you were healthy and the next moment you cannot qualify. And that relates to people who are young, people who are aging, especially families who have someone who might need more care, like special needs families. Oftentimes, we're so busy thinking about the loved one that we have that needs assistance physically or emotionally that we haven't even thought about the financial constraints and the financial value we can provide to that person. And, it's unfortunate, but a lot of times we're so wrapped up in other things, or oftentimes we don't want to talk about those things. They're uncomfortable to talk about. Yes. People are in denial about either them aging, their parents aging, health conditions. I was in denial about my son and his epilepsy. So I understand it, but I also understand the importance to have a professional help you.
Yeah, and we all have this mentality that, it's never going to happen to us, but there's two things in life that are certain, right? People, death and taxes. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the
No
most,
matter what.
yeah, and the most common call that I get here at the office is, oh, I need to get a power of attorney for mom and dad. They're in the hospital, there's an emergency. And guess what? Most of the time, there's nothing I can do because they no longer have capacity to sign them.
Right.
So by doing these things ahead of time, when you're young enough, when you're have the capacity to do it, it's so important. Otherwise, you're just leading yourself into a guardianship.
Right.
Yeah. So let's touch on
Michelle, I'm your advocate, because when I'm working with couples, regardless of what it is they're going through, whether they're going through separation, divorce, I have older couples who are looking at prenuptial agreements, and I am guiding them to people like you, because I tell them how important it is to have those documents prepared and signed today, that they shouldn't wait. And if they've done it in the past, they need to relook at those. What do you recommend? Every 3 years, every 5 years?
Yeah, I always tell my clients, at your birthday, take out your estate plan and read through it. Just make sure nothing has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And every couple of years, meet with an attorney to do just a comprehensive review of everything, just to make sure there's something that they missed or might not have thought about.
Right.
Yeah, that definitely was one of the questions. And also, like, as far as how often you should get them done, but what is encompassed in that entire estate planning, not just the power of attorney or the healthcare surrogate, but what are all the documents that are included in that people really, the most important documents that they really need to make sure that they have in place?
Yeah, so you definitely do want to have the power of attorney, the healthcare directives such as surrogate, living will, because those help to avoid guardianships and problems in the future should you lose capacity. In addition to that, you should be looking at, do I need a trust? Do I need a will?
Mm-hmm.
And typically it depends on what kind of assets you have. If you have any type of real estate, we definitely want to talk about doing a trust, because it's going to help to avoid probate in the future. If all of your assets are financial in nature, then we want to sit down with, hopefully if you have a financial advisor or someone who handles your investments, or even, just following up with your bankers to make sure everything has a beneficiary listed on it, or else it's going to be a hightail straight into guardianship and probate, depending if you're alive or not. So there's documents that are in place to help you while you're alive, and others that help your family deal with things after you have passed.
And speaking of that, it's important, and we can kind of leave on this note, but it's really important to realize that your power of attorney does die with you. It's not a document that supersedes death. So that's why it's incredibly important to make sure you have all of those documents in place and that your family knows your wishes. Because it's incredibly important to talk about these things before, you're incapacitated. Incredibly important.
Absolutely. And for people having to deal with like someone like Freya or with Pam, if you don't have those documents in place and you're not able to handle your own decision making, your family needs those documents in place to be able to take care of things.
Yeah, it creates such a mess if you don't pre-plan. So do it for your family, not just for yourself.
Exactly.
All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for coming on and taking time out of your busy morning. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day.